Greetings, my name is Father Arthur Ndembula. Today I've received a very interesting question, the kind of question that makes you think, that makes you, crack your head, scratch your head and try to find a way out of the thicket of things, that kind of a thing. Okay, the question goes like, if sex outside marriage is a sin and a child that is born out of that act is still a blessing from God, then how does a sinful act bring forth a blessing? Okay, did you ever think of that? How does a blessing come out of a sinful act? Okay, let us try to respond to this question from this perspective. I think it will help us a big deal to separate the state of a child as a blessing from God and the state of this particular act, this sexual act, as a sin. Remember, we're talking of a sexual act that is done outside marriage and from which comes a child whom we say is still a blessing from God. Okay, of course, the child is still a blessing from God, but how come? How possible? The child is still a blessing from God because it is willed by God. What do I mean by this child is willed by God? We are not products of sex, ultimately. No. Our ultimate source is God, meaning that every child that is conceived is a product of God's will. Every child that is conceived is a product of God's thought. If God does not want it, if God does not will it, the child is not going to be born. This baby is not going to be conceived, or the woman is not going to conceive. Sex is not our ultimate source. Our ultimate source is God. And if we come from God, then all of us, regardless of the circumstances in which we are born, are a blessing from God. So, let us try to separate this child who is a blessing and this act which is a sin. If we put the two together and try to understand them within the same location, within the same radius of things, then we are going to have a problem in trying to understand how a sinful act gives birth or creates or brings forth a blessing. So it has to be very clear that the child is not ultimately coming from sex, but from God. And if this child is ultimately coming from God, then from that perspective, it acquires the blessed status. So the child is still blessed, even if the act is wrong or is a sin. So it is just a question of separating this child as a blessing and this act as a sinful act. Sex is, allow me to call it, an instrument that God has put in human life for procreation between man and woman. Sex is not the ultimate, please underline the word ultimate. Sex is not the ultimate source of human life. Life comes from God. Sex is only a conduit or an instrument, as we may want to call it, through which a child comes to life, and not the ultimate source of the child. If sex becomes the ultimate source of a child, then you and I are going to have problems in trying to understand how a sinful act gives birth to a blessing. Okay? We're trying to understand the question here. This sex, when it is done outside marriage and as a result there is a child, how does the child still maintain the blessed status? I hope this is clear. The child is still blessed because the ultimate source is God and not sex. Please let me know your thoughts. Let us try to discuss. Let me know what you think about it. I'm not here to tell you, to give you the absolute answer. This question is quite interesting because it engages discussion, it provokes discussion, so to say. So If you have thoughts, if you have other perspectives from which we can look at this question, please let me know. Let me know. I don't know in one way or the other. But this is what I can say for now about this particular question. Okay? Bye-bye. Thank you.